Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the recap and review of NCIS Season 17, Episode 7, No Vacancy. So we start out with this poor family who sends their children to look at the pigs. The pigs just so happen to be feasting on a human corpse. So in the squad room, Torres reveals that he's running late because he stopped to pick up toys for his girlfriend's son. And then him and McGee actually stop and talk about the action figures a little bit, and it's like kind of a genuinely nice moment. They head over to the crime scene and Jimmy won't come over at first because he's scared of pigs. I can't imagine why, they're so gentle. Among the human remains and pig excrement, they find a key to the Monarch Motel. When the team heads over to the motel, they see that someone's been tampering with the vents and that there's like wires hanging out. And then the manager's just like, oh sorry, it must be the rats that live here. When Gibbs heads up to the attic, he sees that there's been cameras installed, meaning that someone's spying on all the rooms. When we head back to the squad room, we're introduced to Richard, who is a staff sergeant and Elena's grown son. While Torres is trying to digest this new information, Richard and Bishop are having a moment. Meanwhile, they're able to identify that the remains belong to Gunnery Sergeant Aaron Shaw. They think that he might have been the peeping Tom at the hotel and that someone found out and killed him. They also figure out that he's been getting a lot of payments from a congressman named Eric Riley. They confront the congressman, who says that Shaw wasn't blackmailing him. In fact, he was probably the one that got Shaw killed. Riley says that about a month prior, he had an affair with a woman in that hotel. Eventually, someone started blackmailing him about it, and he couldn't go to the police because he was running for re-election, so he went to Aaron because they were close friends. Torres goes to meet Elena, and they're apologizing to each other over the miscommunication about her son's age, and it's like, honestly, a very nice moment. It's then that Richard walks in with his new date, Bishop. Great. And then Elena's like, oh great, why don't we just sit together? What? We're given a short but merciful break from this moment to figure out that there's DNA on the motel ceiling belonging to a man named Daniel Mulgrew. The next scene with the date is so uncomfortable to watch that the only note I took for it is, I feel ill. Thankfully, they get a call that they have to leave the date and head over to Mulgrew's peeping station. When they get there, they see that Mulgrew has been murdered and that the cameras from the motel have all been reconnected. They figure out that Mulgrew was working for someone in a blackmailing ring, and when he tried to quit, his boss threatened him. They also figure out that Mulgrew used to do surveillance work for the NSA and that his access manager was a man named Patrick Norian. Torres goes to Jimmy an autopsy, but he can tell that Torres is really distracted. They all think that the whole double date situation was really weird, and then Jimmy's like, this is why we have rule number 12. I mean, look at Tony and Ziva. Jimmy talks about how they were always flirting and fighting, and he could always tell there was something going on, but he assures Torres that him and Bishop have none of that chemistry. Bishop is having a similar talk with McGee, who just desperately wants this conversation to be over. They talk to Patrick Norian, who says that he let Mulgrew go from the NSA because there was accusations of him spying on his female coworkers. But as he's saying that, they're able to trace the threatening emails back to Norian himself. It turns out that yes, Norian is behind the blackmailing ring and did force Mulgrew to run those cameras. However, he was not the murderer because he was at an away game that night. Gibbs is really irritated and he tells everyone to go back to the farm and interview everyone, even the pigs if they have to.
Do you see what I see?
But then they're able to find out through a friend of Shaw's that the woman that Congressman Riley was sleeping with is actually a Russian spy, and that she was sleeping with him in exchange for government secrets. When Shaw figured all this out, Riley killed him and then pinned it on Mulgrew, who he then killed as well. Gibbs and Bishop confront him with all this and then end up arresting him right out of his office. Back in the squad room, Torres apologizes to Bishop for being so overprotective on the date and that he views her like a little sister. It turns out that Richard had to go back to camp and Elena broke up with Torres, so that's a successful date if I've ever seen one. But the two of them decide to go and talk everything out over a burger. Finally, we cut to Gibbs's house where he's teaching Phineas how to make a paper mache volcano. It also looks like Gibbs has been helping him study and they've already gotten really close and it's just oh. And then Phineas runs home for dinner and Gibbs finds a little drawing that Phineas made of him and Gibbs playing baseball. It's just very endearing. And that is No Vacancy. I really loved the growth we saw from Torres in this episode. Even when he found out that Elena had a kid, he was so mature about it. And even when like McGee and Bishop were giving him flack for it, he still was like, oh, this is my girlfriend and I really like her, so I'm gonna try and adjust to it. And the fact that he went out, like when he thought this was a little kid, and bought them all these nice toys and action figures, it was just, I liked it a lot. You know, I guess this means that Dr. Grace wasn't the older woman that he was seeing. And at first I thought I was gonna be really bummed out by that because I thought it was just gonna be like, the butt of a joke. He's sleeping with an older woman, like a cougar, ah! The storyline like kind of took a turn from where I thought it was gonna go, but I didn't mind where it went. I was not expecting so much Bishop and Torres stuff in this episode. I didn't mention it in the recap, but there was this moment towards the end where Torres was like, oh, I'm sorry for being so, and like there's this long pause and you think he might say jealous, but then Bishop says overprotective, and then he kind of runs with that. And then there was a moment earlier on where he was like, you know, we're just friends, we don't care who each other dates, right? And then it's like a whole vibe, as I'm sure you can imagine. I do wonder if that conversation that Jimmy and Torres had is gonna come up again, especially when Ziva comes back. I wonder if Torres might bring up her relationship with Tony and like talk about it more, ask some more questions about it, especially maybe in relation to Bishop. I really love that we're seeing more Phineas. I know that he's going to be in a few more episodes, you know, through this half of the season. I think there's that one where he like babysits Phineas for the weekend, which I'm so excited to see. Jack Fisher, who plays Phineas, posted on his Instagram that he just wrapped on NCIS, which, you know, implies that he's done for at least a little while. And based on when he posted it, I think that would mean his, at least for now, last episode would be episode 11. If this is his last episode for a while, I'm very curious to see what makes him leave. You know, is there some kind of horrific incident? Hopefully not. Does he have to return to his dad for some reason, because they were saying that his dad had custody of him for most of his life? I don't know. But the fact that I think Jack was saying he's open to coming back means that he at least doesn't die, which is nice. Just from the looks of it, it seems like he's gonna be in episode 11, which we know Ziva is also in. So I'm wondering how that's gonna tie into the Ziva stuff. Speaking of Ziva, not a ton of stuff has happened since last week. I know Cote has done some press stuff. One of the interviews did seem to confirm that the 10th episode is called The North Pole, which has like, I don't know, like a fun, ominous holiday vibe happening. That interview, by the way, I'll link down below. It's a little bit weird. Like there's a part where the guy is like, tonight's episode is called The North Pole and Ziva deals with anxiety. And it was released like on Tuesday, which obviously was not the North Pole. Also, is that just like the official synopsis we're getting? And then just like touching on some stuff that I'd already touched on last week. It certainly seems like Tali is happening. I know CBS hasn't like come forward and been like, yeah, for sure, here's the cast list. At this point, there's just quite a few things that have gone around that are quite confident that Tali is back, that the Golfieri twins are back, so I'm just rolling with it. Something that I hadn't thought about, but you guys definitely did, is Senior. Will Senior be back for episodes 10 or 11? I think that Senior being involved with something involving his granddaughter and the mother of his granddaughter would be fair. Wow, is that a reunion that I would love to see. It's also a reunion that makes me nervous, but we'll save that for another time. Does he know in any way, shape, or form that she's alive, or would that be just like thrown at him? He already had the granddaughter thrown at him. I mean, I feel like he can take anything at this point. Could it be because Tony's preoccupied or in danger or something like that? I feel like that could be a valid excuse as to maybe why Senior is there and Tony's not. Again, would I love to see Tony there? Hell yeah. Whether or not Tony will appear is, I think, still up in the air. I still do think it's possible. I know it was like briefly referenced in one of the interviews and Cote was kind of like, she didn't say no. She also very much didn't say yes. I feel like it's going to be one of those things that we're just maybe going to have to wait until the episode for. This just feels like such a perfect opportunity for Tony to appear. I know we haven't seen the episode yet, so that could be untrue. That could be a lie. As of now, it just feels like it would be a good time for the whole family to reunite. Will they? I just don't know. As far as what like the plot of these two episodes is going to be, we still don't really know yet, and I'm really curious to find out. There is the element of like a real Sahar in there, but as far as like an exact plot line, I don't think we know yet. We haven't gotten a press release yet. That might happen literally 2 seconds after I post this, because of course. But if it does, I'll talk about it in the comments or in the description or something, so keep your eyes peeled. I believe that's all I have to say as far as No Vacancy and spoilers go. Again, I talked a little bit about some musical chairs spoilers as well as a bunch more Ziva spoilers in my last video. I'll link that below. For now, let me know your guys' thoughts on No Vacancy and the upcoming episodes, and I will see you guys for the recap and review of musical chairs. Oh no. I don't want it. I just don't want it.